Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel or the podcast for listen. In today's episode, I'm going to go through the top 10 foods you can eat to lose body fat. I will preface by saying you cannot spot reduce body fat. So just like doing 1,000 sit-ups a day will not help you lose body fat. Eating some of these foods, you cannot just spot target it. However, if you consume these foods, it will certainly make the process of being in a calorie deficit certainly easier. So I will preface by saying 3 principles I'm going to be operating off before we go into the top 10 foods are as follows. First one is having protein at every single meal. Protein is super important for your muscle, for your metabolism, and it's for help you stay fitter for longer. As well as this too, protein has got a higher thermic effect to food than carbohydrates or fats. So for example, only 0 to 3% of the fat that you consume is actually broken down in digestion. Carbohydrates, 5 to 10% of the calories you consume from them are lost in or broken down in digestion. But with protein, interestingly enough, 20 to 30% of the calories you consume from protein, especially lean source of protein, are actually lost in digestion. So for example, if you have 100 calories worth of a chicken breast, after digestion, that might only equate to 70 or 80 calories. Now, as you'll see from the list I'm about to go through, not all sources of protein are created equal. Some of these foods, they have a very positive calorie to protein ratio, meaning that the amount of protein in each of the foods is quite high, but yet the calories are quite low. So for example, if you want to get 25 grams of protein, you could consume 100 grams of nuts, which would give you roughly 25 grams of protein. However, it would also contain up to 600 calories. On the flip side, if you wanted to get 25 grams of protein from something like a chicken breast, that would only be 130 calories and just 110 grams of chicken. So that is why having leaner source of protein, especially when you're in a cut, is going to be important. So foods like lamb, foods that are higher in fat, things like pork, things like sausages, all of these foods, I would certainly recommend limiting them in a fat loss phase because yes, they do contain protein, but they also contain a lot of fat. Now, pillar number 2 is going to be foods that are high in fiber. So fiber is just one of those secret things that not a lot of people speak about that make fat loss so much easier. So consuming fiber would essentially allow you to eat more volume of food without containing so many calories. So for example, if you wanted 200 calories worth of strawberries, that'll be roughly 600 grams. 600 grams of strawberry only contains 200 calories. Another example being something like broccoli. Quite hard, if someone put a plate of broccoli or strawberries in front of you, it's quite hard to eat 600 grams and not feel satiated. However, on the flip side, something like 33 grams of peanut butter, which is just over 1.5 tablespoons, or 7 squares of dairy milk chocolate, also contain 200 calories. So that's why volume eating will certainly make the process much easier. But the reason volume eating and fiber is important is because also too, when you consume fiber, you're actually satiated, you're actually full. Whereas if you consume higher calorie foods, domino foods such as chocolate, such as potatoes, such as sweets and so on, you actually do not tend to be full, and what they cause you to do is want to consume and eat more of them. The RDA, what we recommend our clients is to get roughly 30 grams of fiber a day. I'll go through some good source in the video in a moment. And finally, the third pillar is healthy fats. So not all fats are created equal, and unlike carbohydrates, there are actually essential fats that you need to consume in your diet, meaning that if you do not get them from food, you need to supplement with them. So 2 important fats particularly are monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats. You can find those in foods like salmon, sardines, chia seeds, Brazil nuts, and even things like dark chocolate, avocado as well. On the flip side though, especially in a fat loss phase, I would not recommend a diet high in saturated fats and a diet especially high in trans fats. The reason being is because particularly diets high in saturated and trans fats, they've been shown to increase, first of all, fatty liver. They've also been shown to increase something we call visceral fat. Now, visceral fat is that deep layer of fat that sits around your organs, and it's not very beneficial from a health perspective. What you will find in some of the lists here that I go through is that they contain foods that are healthy source of poly and monounsaturated fats. And finally, just on fats itself, I did a bodybuilding show 2 years ago, and one mistake I made was having my dietary fat way too low. Fats are also really important for your health and for your hormones, and I can just say my libido is certainly not the best after the bodybuilding show because I kept my dietary fat too low. What I would generally recommend is get at least 20% of your daily calories from dietary fat. Speaking of fiber, we spoke about 30 grams of fiber per day, and protein, what I recommend is 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Okay, so food number 1, something I consume every single day, and that is eggs and also egg whites. So eggs and egg whites are an amazing source of protein and also healthy fats. Eggs also contain choline, which is good for your brain function. Now, interesting enough, a research study showed that participants who consumed or ate eggs for breakfast, they lost 66% more weight than those who consumed bagels for breakfast. What I always recommend for a client is to have about maybe 2 to 3 eggs, and then the remainder being egg whites. So the egg yolk itself contains about 50 calories, but it is also a source of healthy fat, where the egg white, that's the leaner source of protein. So personally, what I like to do is I'll have roughly 3 whole eggs and about 125 mils or about 5 or 6 liquid egg whites. This will give me nearly 30 grams grams of protein in my breakfast, and it's a really good way to help satiate and help keep me full. Okay, food number 2 is turkey. Turkey is an amazing source of protein. So 100 grams of turkey contains 29 grams of protein. That is why at Christmas dinner, it's like no one ever overeats the turkey because it's so satiating, it's so filling. As well as so, turkey, interesting enough, contains tryptophan. And tryptophan is a precursor for serotonin. Serotonin is your brain's feel-good hormone. Losing fat can certainly be a hard process, but if you're consuming foods like turkey, okay, it can certainly help elevate and raise your mood. So turkey, an amazing source of protein, and that's going to be food number 2. Now, food number 3 might surprise you, but I'm going to put salmon on the list here. Sure, salmon's calorie to protein ratio is not as good as something like turkey, because roughly 180 calories per 100 grams of salmon, that will give you 20 grams of protein. Not as a lean source of protein as turkey. However, salmon has just got amazing benefits too for containing omega-3 fatty acids. And considering that omega-3 fatty acids are essential for your brain, they're also really good for your hormone production. That is why I'm putting salmon on the list. Personally, I consume salmon every single day, and I just do notice that I feel and function much better. Salmon for number 3, getting some healthy fish in. Now, a good alternative to salmon, if you cannot always get it or buy it in the supermarket, would be sardines. Again, a really lean source of protein and also contain lots of healthy fats. Okay, food number 4 is 0% Greek yogurt. So a lot of the clients we work with, they're busy working professionals. They're not always able to prep or cook their meals. One thing we preach to our clients is have a source of protein in every single meal. Greek yogurt is like that lowest hanging fruit. Roughly 60 calories per 100 grams, and it will contain 10 grams of protein. So if you have roughly 2 tablespoons of Greek yogurt, that's 10 grams of protein. All right, like it's just a no-brainer there. So if you have 300 grams of Greek yogurt, that's going to give you 30 grams of protein and only 180 calories. Personally, what I like to do is I like to get the Fage brand, which is Fage. Other good brands include Broccoli, Skier yogurt, and also Liberté as well. Now, a close fourth in the list, because I can't include everything, will be just a lean source of protein powder. So personally speaking, I like to use Sun Warrior vegan protein, but any good source of protein will also be a good alternative here. Again, the reason behind it is simple. It's a quick, convenient, lean source of protein that will give you something, to tie you over in between meals and help keep you fuller for longer. Furthermore, too, the benefit of Greek yogurt is they contain probiotics, and probiotics are amazing for your gut microbiome. Okay, so food number 5, it's not necessarily a food, but rather a food group, and that is leafy greens and vegetables. Okay, vegetables, again, when we speak about volume eating, it's very difficult to eat 600 grams of broccoli or 600 grams of green beans, and you've been told it's only 200 calories. So the reason I like just leafy greens and vegetables is because they essentially allow you to eat a lot of them for not a lot of calories. And essentially, the goal of being in a calorie deficit, we always say, is to eat as much food as possible while staying within your calories. And if you can limit hunger by having some leafy greens, having some vegetables like broccoli, like green beans, like spinach and so on, okay, it will certainly make the process that bit easier. And as well as this too, like just leafy greens, it's like they contain so many amazing vitamins and minerals for your body. So I'd highly recommend everyone consume leafy greens on a daily basis, and they will be the 5th food on the list. Okay, food number 6 is blueberries. So a common question we get asked amongst our clients are, how do I actually curb sugar cravings? Personally speaking, berries essentially, and blueberries in particular, they're very good. They're high in antioxidants, but any berries in general, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and so on. The reason I like them is because they contain very few calories, they taste delicious, and they're also super nutritious. So blueberries are going to be the next one. Again, they're so versatile. You can just snack on them, grab and go. You can put them in your porridge in the morning. You can have them in your Greek yogurt. Again, an amazing option, but berries, but particularly blueberries, they're going to be number 6 in the list. Okay, so speaking of porridge, so porridge is going to be number 7, oatmeal. It's my favorite form of carbohydrates, along with number 8, which I'll speak about in a moment. The reason I love porridge is because, first of all, it's so satiating, it's so filling. If you cook porridge, a large volume of water, and you cook that, you are not going to be hungry for 2 or 3 hours if you combine that with a source of protein. As well as this, the benefit of porridge is that it's such a complex and slow digestion carbohydrate. So if you compare this to something like, let's just say, Cocoa Pops for breakfast, both do contain carbohydrates, except what goes up must come down. Cocoa Pops will really raise your sugar level, and you might get that quick energy spike, but 1 or 2 hours later you're crashing. Whereas porridge, it's a slower and more like digestible form of carbohydrate that will just gradually raise your energy levels over a period of time. So personally speaking, again, porridge is one of those foods that I have in a fat loss phase, in a muscle building phase, an amazing food to include in your diet. So then number 8 carbohydrate source, this is going to be potatoes, whether it's white potatoes or sweet potatoes. Interesting enough, our white potatoes are the most satiating food on the carbohydrate index, meaning that boiled white potatoes in particular, There's no more satiating food than those. And my mum always used to say to me, if you don't eat your potatoes at dinner, you're going to be hungry for the day. I never really understood it, but now I understand what she means, because boiled white potatoes are very, very difficult to eat a lot of. And the benefit is they're super, super satiating and also so versatile too. You can, boil them, you can cook them in the air fryer, you can add lots of different spice and herbs there. But then as well as this too, if you wanted sweet potatoes as well, again, another great alternative. Roughly in 100 grams of potatoes, they only contain about 80 calories or so. And again, you can have them at dinner, you can have them at lunch, and they're super, super versatile. Food number 9 is dark chocolate. So dark chocolate, amazing. Like, not only is it delicious, not only is it nutritious, but also has so many benefits to it as well. Number 1, it contains magnesium, important for your muscular function and performance. And just number 2 as well, it can actually raise your serotonin, your feel-good hormone. So again, going back to the turkey, all right, if you want to feel good in a calorie deficit, consume some chocolate. I do recommend dark chocolate. One thing I would say is just be careful in the portion size. So roughly speaking, 10 grams of dark chocolate contains about 60 calories. So like, I wouldn't be having a 100-gram bar. That's going to be nearly 600 odd calories, but it's an amazing food to consume as a healthy snack, whether you're in a fat loss or a muscle building phase. And the final food on the list, this might surprise, but it's going to be Brazil nuts. Now, having had issues myself with my thyroid, where I have a subclinical hypothyroidism, one thing I realized is that selenium is really important for your thyroid function. And interesting enough, just 2 Brazil nuts a day contains your RDA amount of selenium. Selenium is also really important for your testosterone production too. So that is why every single day, without fail, I consume at least 2 Brazil nuts. Sure, going back to the initial example, that they might be quite high in calories, so roughly 33 calories per nut. On the flip side though, it's like, you can't just look at calories in isolation in food, or the type of food also does matter, and the minerals, the vitamins and nutrients in it. So that is why Brazil nuts are going to be number 10 on the list there of my top 10 foods to eat to lose body fat. So that is all for the top 10 foods to drop body fat. What I would say again is there's no compulsory food or food group to lose body fat. That comes from being in a sustainable calorie deficit. And that's exactly what we help our clients do. It's like, yes, these are the 10 foods, but what I would say is they do not need to be perfect. So for example, one of our clients, Daniel, he lost over 15 kilos of body fat, yet he did have a Chinese most Saturday night. One of our clients, Aiden there, he also lost nearly 15 kilos of body fat, but he was still away on holidays, he was still out with his partner having some fun. One of my other clients, Tamim, okay, he loves his good Indian, he also likes to travel too. He was traveling 1 or 2 times a month. He wasn't always consuming these quote unquote perfect nutrient dense foods. But again, if you can stick to something consistently, at least 80% of the time, that's where more flexibility and leeway can come in. So I don't want you to take away from the video that you need to eat perfectly to lose body fat. What I would recommend is aim for making progress at least 80% of the time, and that other 20% is where some flexibility will come in. But that is all for this week's video, or this week's podcast for your listen. If you found this helpful, please make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on future uploads. And if you want daily fitness content, that is where my Instagram profile will come in. My Instagram handle is Adrian_Mac Lifestyle Fitness. Okay, so check that out if you're not already following. And finally, if you want one-to-one customized coaching, where we essentially go through your training, your nutrition, your lifestyle, or write you up a personalized plan along with one-to-one accountability and coaching, that is essentially what we offer at Mac Lifestyle Fitness. So we only take clients by application only. If you are interested in learning more about our coaching offer and our services, just simply click the link below and you'll be able to schedule a call with me or a member of my team, where we can go through your goals, your challenges, what you need help with in a bit more detail.